Good morning, class. We are going to study a new topic, which is pathogenesis of bacterial infections. ठीक है? So, how bacteria involve in disease causing? So, mechanism of disease, mechanism of development of disease is actually the study of pathogenesis. So, there many bacteria have similar. Mechanism of disease development, but there is also a difference between many bacteria of disease causing process. So let's discuss in detail. In your Levinson, this lecture is from your Levinson. So let's start. Let's define pathogenesis. What is pathogenesis? Pathogenesis, the step or mechanisms involved in the development of disease. In very simple wording, this is actually pathogenesis. Disease development occurs in any individual or in any human being through many steps. Okay, this is stepwise process. So what steps are involved? This we will discuss this thing in later. Okay, what steps are involved in pathogenesis or disease causing? But there are steps which are involved in the disease process. So these steps or mechanisms that involved in the development of disease are known as pathogenesis. And before studying pathogenesis, what are infections? Infection is actually penetration, multiplication, invasion of tissue, toxin invasion in the tissues, toxin production by the infectious agent, leading to production of clinical sign and symptoms. So what are infections? Infections are actually penetration, multiplication, invasion in the tissue, toxin production by the infectious agents, leading to the production of clinical and signs and symptoms. It means when bacteria encounter first with the host cell, they penetrate into the host cell and then multiply within the cell or on the cell. Then after getting m- large number, they invade in the tissues or in the surrounding tissues. And if bacteria have uh, genetic material for toxin production, they also produce toxins. And all these things are involved in the appearance of signs and symptoms. So this is actually infection. So infection starts from penetration of any microscopic agent, or a bacteria, virus or fungus. And the sign and symptom appearance of sign and symptoms is the ultimate clinical finding uh, we can watch in, or we can observe in any disease. So this is actually infection. So why infection can be caused by virus, bacteria, fungi and protozoa are part of parasites. So this is a few things about the infection. So another important things, what are pathogens? So pathogens are those microscopic organisms or microorganisms which can cause disease in human being. Okay, or in we are studying actually with respect to human beings. So that's why we can say microscopic organisms which are capable of disease causing, causing disease. So those microorganisms which have the ability to cause any disease in any body, so these are pathogens for specific body. In our previous lecture, we studied normal flora. And in decide what is the normal flora, I have told you about the opportunistic pathogens. What are opportunistic pathogens? Normal flora are part of our opportunistic pathogen. When they get opportunity to invade, or to invade in the tissues, on the tissue, and cause the sign and symptom, they invade. Okay, so these are opportunistic pathogens. What are opportunistic pathogens? Normal flora are actually opportunistic pathogens. Rarely cause disease in competent people. Those people which have competent immune system or strong immune system, they opportunistic pathogens are unable to cause disease in healthy persons. Okay, cause disease in immunocompromised patient. When patient gets immunocompromised or in aged person, opportunistic pathogens or normal fluoride sometimes is involved in the disease causing process. So in short, opportunistic pathogens are those pathogens or those microscopic generations which can cause a disease by getting any opportunity. Okay, they in normal circumstances, our body can or human body can escape from these pathogens. So but if they get opportunity, if the bacteria get opportunity, then disease can develop. So these are opportunistic pathogens. Another definition is virulence. What is virulence? Virulence is a quantitative measurement or measure of pathogenicity. Most important definitions in your UHS paper. There are many definitions can be uh, can be questions. So that's why you have to you have to keep in mind the definitions of all these things. So virulence, what is the definition of virulence? Virulence is a quantitative measure of pathogenicity. It means in a simple wording, किस बैक्टीरिया में कितनी ability है, कितनी pathogenicity उसकी strong है. Okay, so quantitative measure of pathogenicity. Pathogenicity is a mechanism of disease development, or if any microscopic organism have. So how we measure the pathogenicity? So in short word, we quantitatively measure the ability of disease cause, mechanism of development of disease. This is actually virulence. Okay, measured by the number of organisms required to cause disease. Virulence is actually is highly dependent upon the number of microscopic organisms and number of microscopic organism. In simple wording, number of microscopic organisms are involved in the disease or virulence process. For example, if anyone gets exposed with the 10 bacteria, and when disease will develop late, and will be less, because 10 bacteria will develop takes time uh, takes time to become millions. Okay, as compared to those organisms, those human which gets exposed to 1,000 bacteria in a single way. Okay, so 1,000 bacteria will multiply rapidly into million as compared to 10 person with the 10 bacteria. So that's why the number of organisms they first encounter by the body are very important in COVID cases also. So these are actually virulence or ability of or important definition of virulence. Another important thing is lethal dose. What is lethal dose? Lethal dose is the number of organisms required to kill the host. Okay. Another important definition. What is lethal or dose? These are actually dose. These are actually amount of bacteria. Okay. So this is actually amount of bacteria required to kill the host. Okay. सो इट मीन्स कितने बैक्टीरिया जो हैं वो होस्ट को किल कर सकते हैं, वो जो बैक्टीरिया की क्वांटिटी होगी वो होगी लीथल डोज. ओके. Another thing is infectious dose, number of organisms required to cause infection in the host. Okay, so number of organisms required to cause infection in the host are infectious dose. Means in lethal dose, organisms are those in which or number of organisms are required to kill the organism. Minimum number of organism. Okay, so in infectious dose, not person is not going to kill, but in appearance or development of any infection. So during development or to development of any for development of any infection. ठीक है, मिनिमम नंबर कितने किसी भी माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म के बॉडी में जाने चाहिए हैं. सो वो जो डोज है वो होती है इन्फेक्शियस डोज, and it is very important in the virulence of any organism. In pathogenicity, we usually we can uh, face the spread of infection in community. So in communities, uh, spread on the basis of a spread of infection, or in other words, we if we say how what are terms used for the spread of infection at different levels. It means if a disease is if any disease is in just in a family, then what term will be used? If any disease is spread worldwide, then what will we say? So uh, with the time, with the s- uh, spread or area covered by the disease, we use, there are usually four terms, and these are important in pathogenicity of disease. What are there are four terms we used: sporadic, endemic, epidemic, pandemic, for any organism, for any disease. Okay, so sporadic disease, endemic disease, epidemic, and the pandemics. So these are terms used for the for to identify, or many, these are actually manifestation of infections in the communities. Okay, so what are sporadic infections? Sporadic infection are those infections which appears occasionally at irregular intervals of time in a low number, disseminated in the territory, and without connection between cases. ओके, इट मीन्स कि देखें, एक केस जो किसी भी डिज़ीज़ का, कोई भी ऐसी डिज़ीज़ जो निकली हो कि उसका एक केस आज आपको पाकिस्तान में मिले, और एक केस जो है उसका कुछ अरसे बाद आपको जो है पाकिस्तान से किसी भी दूर कंट्री, किसी यूरोपियन कंट्री में आपको मिलता है। एंड अगर आप उनकी हिस्ट्री लें और कोई ऐसा आपको कनेक्शन नहीं मिलता, दिस इज़ इरेगुलर, कि आप जो है पेश ना तो वो पाकिस्तान का वो कोई पर्सन जो है वो यूरोपियन कंट्री गया, ना वो फैमिली थी, और ना ही कोई ऐसा कनेक्शन था। सो देर इज़ नो कनेक्शन बिटवीन द केसेस, एंड दिस इज़ एक्चुअली स्पोरेडिक infection. This is actually sporadic disease. Okay, so in sporadic, we cannot calculate statics of any disease के उसकी mortality rate क्या है, उसका infectious rate क्या है, उसका positive rate क्या है, because these are sporadic in different areas. They are actually spreading out in different areas. वो different areas में निकल रही हैं और different frequency के साथ निकल रही हैं, कभी केस आ रहा है कभी नहीं. So this is actually very difficult or sometimes impossible for us to uh, calculate the stats of these sporadic infection. What are endemic infection? Endemic are constant presence of an infection in a community with a frequency that varies very little from year to year. Okay, a common thing. This is a very we have many diseases which are actually which are existing in our area, in our country, in our province, and they are constantly present. Sometimes we face we have faced many time with that disease. Okay, लेकिन क्या है कि they that those diseases are endemic infection, endemic diseases like typhoid. Typhoid is actually endemic. Typhoid is constantly present, but in 2000 cases, in 2016 cases was very high, but nowadays cases are low as compared to last few years. So change in frequency or slight change in frequency may vary, but this type of infection or spread of infection will be endemic, a constant present. In endemic infection, we can calculate this stats, we can calculate the mortality, because infection is constantly present, and we can link the spread of infection as well. So these are actually endemic infections. What are epidemic? Epidemic are those infections which are sudden rise of frequency of an infection in a community over the estimated one. We demonstrated connection among them. ठीक है. Epidemic या small community is called an outbreak. ठीक है. What is epidemic? Epidemic mean कि कोई डिजीज़ थी, लेकिन सडनली उसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी और उसके केसेस इतने बढ़ गए, then we get it's epidemic. And sometimes they get out of control, like in dengue in 2011 and 2012 was epidemic. Okay, because in they cases suddenly जो है बहुत ज़्यादा रेज हो गए. ठीक है. और इसको हम इन स्मॉल कम्युनिटी, अगर एक छोटी जगह पर हो रही है, एक स्मॉल कम्युनिटी एक स्मॉल टाउन में है, देन वी से इट्स एन आउटब्रेक. Okay, it means if epidemic is actually a bigger term, so small term for epidemic is outbreak. It means अगर किसी हॉस्पिटल किसी वार्ड में खास किस्म का इन्फेक्शन स्प्रेड हो जाता है कि हर पेशेंट को वो इन्फेक्शन हो रहा है, देन इट विल बी आउटब्रेक, बिकॉज देयर इज़ अ स्मॉल कम्युनिटी. बट अगर वही इन्फेक्शन जो है, अगर उसी तरह का इन्फेक्शन जो है एक कंट्री में या एक जो है प्रोविंस में हो रहा है, देन वी विल से इट्स एन एपिडेमिक of any disease. Okay, so another important term, and very common term nowadays, we are using pandemic of COVID-19, or pandemic of corona infection. So what is pandemic? Epidemic at an international scale. A simple wording. Epidemic actually is a outbreak is a smaller than epidemic, and epidemic is a smaller than pandemic, and pandemic is a large word. So spread of disease throughout the world or at international scale will be pandemic. Okay. In COVID-19 cases, इन कोविड 19 केस, सब जो वायरस है वो चाइना से मूव करते हुए पूरे वर्ल्ड में स्प्रेड हो गया. दिस विल बी पेंडेमिक. ओके, दिस इज पेंडेमिक. सो इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर डिजीज़ का इतना बढ़ जाना, देन वी विल से इट्स अ पेंडेमिक. सो ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ इन्फेक्शियस डिजीज़ के डिज़ीज़ जब डेवलप होती है, तो उसमें क्या क्या चीज़ें जो हैं वो इन्वॉल्व हैं, व्हाट स्टेप्स आर इन्वॉल्व एक्चुअली, स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम द एक्सपोजर ऑफ द पैथोजन. तो सबसे पहले जो है हमारे पास जो है सबसे पहले इन फॉर टू कॉज डिजीज़, body must be exposed with the pathogen. So if pathogen penetrate, और अगर पैथोजन जो है वो बॉडी के साथ या बॉडी एक्सपोज हो जाती है पैथोजन से, देन इट विल बी अ फर्स्ट स्टेप. तो एक्सपोजर ऑफ पैथोजन एक्चुअली अ फर्स्ट स्टेप. देन पैथोजन will move into prodromal period. What is prodromal period? I will discuss this in next slide. Then after prodromal period, there is an incubation period of disease, and after incubation period of illness. And after illness, if disease is uncured, then remain uncured or very lethal, then patient will move toward death or treatment as well, or sometime it will if patient, it can cause disability. Now in diagram you can easily study these things. What are incubation period or what are prodromal period? So what is the incubation period, or let's start from prodromal period. Prodromal period is actually a period of any disease after the initiation or penetration of organism, a stage in which or a time during which the patient start to feel something wrong but does not yet experience the actual symptoms. In other words, a period of appearance of non-specific symptoms is actually prodromal period for any disease. Okay, non-specific symptoms for any disease like अगर कोई पेशेंट जो है वो उसको कोई ऐसी फेस कर रहा है सिम्टम जो बहुत सारी डिजीज में, देन वी से इट्स एक्चुअली अ प्रोड्रोमल पीरियड. Then another period is incubation period. What is incubation period? Incubation, the time that elapses between the entry of the pathogen and the onset of symptoms. ओके. सो व्हाट इज़ इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड? के इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड था कि डिज़ीज़ डेवलप हो गई. डिज़ीज़ डेवलपमेंट के लिए पेनिट्रेशन के बाद, जो भी पेनिट्रेशन के बाद सिम्टम्स अपीयर होने के लिए जो भी टाइम था, जो भी ड्यूरेशन था, उसको हम इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड कह रहे थे. और इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड के इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड में ही नॉन स्पेसिफिक साइन सिम्टम अपीयर हो रही हैं, तो वो पीरियड जो है प्रोडोमल पीरियड है. एंड आफ्टर prodromal period, when the person experience typical sign and symptom of any disease, then this is actually a illness period. What is illness period? A time when the patient or a person faced face specific sign and symptoms of any disease or communicable disease, then we'll say it's an illness. And the last stage is convalescence, a time of recuperation and recovery from illness, permanent damage or complete recovery. A last stage in which there are three chances. There are three chances after the illness. First option is treatment. If a patient अगर पेशेंट की इम्यून सिस्टम इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग है कि वो ट्रीट कर लेता है और जो है रिकवर कर लेता है, तो देन पेशेंट रिकवर हो जाएगा. अदरवाइज पेशेंट कैन मूव टुवर्ड द डिसेबिलिटी, और इन सीवियर केसेस इफ द डिजीज इज वेरी lethal, then patient can move into death or permanent damage can occur. So these are actually cause of infections. So another important thing is virulence factors. What are virulence factors? Oh, many bacteria or different microorganisms may have different virulence factors. So, if we talk if we talk generalized about the virulence factors, then pathogen produced extracellular proteins that they aid in the establishment and the maintenance of disease. ओके. दिस इज़ एक्चुअली क्या है कि देखें, पैथोजन, any microorganism have any types of proteins, but many proteins are involved, or many special structure are involved in the development of disease in the host. Okay. So what factors which factor or factors involved in the disease cause disease increase in the disease involved in the disease development, and how they are participating, they are actually virulence factor. And there are many virulence factors for many bacteria. Most are enzymes that help in the pathogens colonize, grow, or spread within the tissues. Fibrin clots form at the site of microbial invasion to limit the infection, but some organisms can dissolve these clots. Okay, so we can easily bacteria may have many types of virulence factor, and most of them are enzymes. So in some bacteria there are few enzymes are present which can colonize in any host and grow or spread भी कर सकते हैं टिश्यू पर. और there are few enzymes which can bind with fibrin and form the clot, but हमारी बॉडी में important mechanisms है तो वो clots को resolve भी कर सकता है. तो this is actually a disease development process, and tools which are important for the development of disease are known as virulence factors. Okay. A few more things about the virulence factors. Virulence factors characteristics that enable bacteria to cause disease. I have told you in last slide. Determine the pathogenicity. Okay, it means if virulence factor, if we quantitatively measure the virulence factors of any bacteria, then we can predict the pathogenicity or harmful effect of any pathogen or bacteria. Pathogenic bacteria may have one or several virulence factors. Okay, so bacteria have usually more than one pathogenic virulence factors, they may be common to all bacteria of given genus. Sometimes they are common. Sometimes virulence factors are common in same genus or species, and sometimes variations can also be occur. So virulence factors can be virulence factors are important in disease development. So in a different strains we can observe different virulence factors, okay. But virulence factors are of many types which can be same or different in even in a species or a genus, okay. Give the organism a several advantages. ये virulence factors are involved in ये जो है organism को बहुत ज़्यादा फ़ायदे देते हैं. कैसे फ़ायदे? They are actually they are helping in the development of disease. They are helping in the growth of bacteria or survival of bacteria in the host, because bacteria have to escape from the immune system of the host. So virulence factors also involved in the saving of bacteria from the host immune system, okay. So ये भी एक बात है कि virulence factor, that's why most important virulence factor express the pathogenicity degree of microorganism. Minimum lethal dose and the LD 50. The lethal dose 50% amount of antigens that kill 50%. Okay, so there are two factors. So these are actually virulence factors, and virulence factors and the are very important of every organism. Okay, here you can observe some virulence factors in a bacteria. Endotoxins are virulence factors. Enterotoxins are a virulence factor. Citrospores in the wall is also a virulence factor. Act as a fimbriae can also act as a virulence factor. They are involved in the attachment, so they are helping the bacteria in the disease development. So they are virulence factor. There are many you can say flagella, antigens, even virulence plasmid is also a disease involved in disease development. So these are actually virulence factors for any bacteria, for any disease, for development of any disease. So thank you so much.